From stage to strategy, using influence for impact. Qhawekazi Mazeleni, Miss South Africa 2025, is a qualified speech therapist and children's author who uses her platform to champion inclusive education, literacy, and linguistic access for underserved communities. She's the first ambassador of the Empower Youth Africa campaign.
Good afternoon. I must admit, earlier as I was walking the fashion show, I felt a lot more calm than I did on the finale evening. As I was preparing for today, I kept on pondering on what I could possibly share in a room where I also have so much to learn. And I thought, let me rather just start by introducing myself. Qhawekazi Mazeleni. I am an educational activist. I am a qualified speech therapist, and I'm a self-published children's author. And this work has shaped the work that I care about most deeply. And it's the reason I stand before you today as Miss South Africa 2025 and as a proud ambassador for Empower Youth Africa. If I'm completely honest with you, I think I've always had a bit of a soft spot for people. Even long before titles and platforms, I was always the child who was asking, how can we make this specific solution work for that child and this child? And that curiosity about people eventually led to me finding out about speech therapy. It led to me becoming an education activist, and it also led to me writing children's books. Miss South Africa is oftentimes associated with pageantry. But what I've discovered is that it's a platform for social transformation, for leadership, as well as for self-development. And for me, it's given me the reach to be able to expand the work that I care about most deeply. Through this platform, Miss South Africa launched an initiative called Empower Youth Africa, an initiative which has been rooted in an important, but yet a very urgent question. How do we ensure that women and young people across Africa are not left behind by the systems that are meant to serve them? Empower Youth Africa unites our Miss South Africa finalists around scalable social impact initiatives which focus on youth unemployment, on entrepreneurship, on health and wellness, on civic engagement, on Pan-African collaboration, as well as on education. Now, as the first Miss South Africa Wamatuke, for those who are not South African, that essentially refers to anybody who was born after 1999. It essentially means that I am one of the first Miss South Africas who is a member of Gen Z, a generation which is often described as impatient. But perhaps what is called impatient is really a generation which is actually asking us how these systems work and how we can make them better, how we can make them faster, and how we can make them work more inclusively for everybody. Because so many of us grow up in these systems and we see the gaps and the people who are left behind. For example, in South Africa, a lot of us know that more than 80% of children in grade 4 struggle to read for meaning. And when a child struggles to read for meaning, it makes everything that follows that much more difficult. For example, if they struggle to learn, they then struggle to complete school, and they struggle to gain access to economic opportunities. And I believe that if we are serious about reducing youth unemployment in our country, it is so important for us to be able to focus on early literacy and basic foundational education. There was a moment during my training as a speech therapist where I specifically identified a challenge. I was working with a 9-year-old girl who had cerebral palsy. And she was trying to learn how to communicate and to read. But there were almost very few books available in her home language. And so I decided to do something very simple. I went back home, I went to my laptop, I opened it up, and I wrote a very short story for her. I went to the shared printers at our university, I printed it and stapled those pages together. And I made this book in her language. And when I went in the next day and I read it to her, she lit up in a way that I had never seen her light up before. And I realized something extremely powerful. Inclusion doesn't always begin with us building new systems, but rather it means that we should ask, who were those systems originally built for? That small moment with uSinenhlanhla eventually led to me self-publishing my own book in isiXhosa, so that more children can have access to books in their own language. But furthermore, for more African children to be able to read and write in their own home languages. And I'm so excited to share that that same story I authored and self-published, Amasele Amdaga, is now being translated into more South African languages. Thank you. Because children see themselves in the stories that they read, and they stand a far better chance of believing in their futures if they are represented in that light. And so as I stand in rooms like this today, I would like to make a very humble request, that you can help us change the trajectory of literacy in Africa by supporting the creation and the distribution of reading materials that are relatable, accessible, and understandable, and ultimately written in languages which shape children's lives. And whether that means supporting initiatives like Amasele Amdaga, investing in educational materials, or simply advocating for more inclusive books and resources, every contribution helps in moving us towards a more equitable education system. Because sometimes the most powerful way that we are able to change a system is simply by us starting with what we have collectively. And for me, Miss South Africa really has been that catalyst. Through Empower Youth Africa, I continue to visit schools to promote literacy, to encourage the creation of resources in home languages, and to bring young people together to participate in solutions which create both opportunity and impact. But this responsibility, I know deep down, is not mine alone. My fellow finalists are tackling the other EYA pillars, using their skills, using their expertise, and their reach for us to be able to push Africa forward. And that is where intergenerational leadership becomes so much more important. Leadership is not about us deciding which generation has gotten it right, but it's more so about asking the question as to what can each of the generations learn from each other? What can we learn from each other, and what can we do to push Africa further? Thank you.
Her Majesty, the Queen.